So we are in an incredible time right now, auspicious time called the time of our joy. And the month of Libra, the month of Tishrei, is a very interesting month. Anyone that is has a birthday during this month or knows anybody in this month that were born in this month, there's that paradox of being very, very intense and then very, very sweet. So our youngest daughter is a Libra, and we see that, and we talk about it day by day, how she's got this paradox going on of being so strong. Like she wants something, it's like you can't, no one could stop her, and then so sweet at the same time. And so that's the paradox of the times that we're living in right now. The times that we're living in right now is the month within this time that we're in time called days of awe and then days of joy. And the verse in Song of Songs, Shir Shirim, King Solomon says that his left is under my smolot tachat oshi, his left is under my head. Vimino, and his right arm will embrace me, will hug me. And the Zohar says that, and brought down in Chassidus, that this refers to the days that we are in right now. That smolot tachat oshi, that his left is under my head. What's the head referring to? The head refers to the days of awe. And that refers to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, where we're in a state of awe, that we are beckoning to the king, and we are recognizing that there is a kingship of heaven, and thereby that there's an awe that accords the king and king of all kings. And just by the way, just as an aside, you know, we see the difference between what kingship should be and what kingship is right now, with various debates and whatnot, and how unfortunately that sense of leadership has been degraded in our eyes, unfortunately, with a sense of politics, which is gematria, which is the numerology of who knows what, but for sure it has to do with Amalek, with negativity on some level. But we see how kingship is something that is something that we work on. And on a spiritual level, the source of working on kingship is this month of Tishrei, where we coronate Hashem as king, as the universe. He always was, he always will be, and he is. Ha-Yehovah v'yeh. But it takes the king, the nation to accept the king. Otherwise, there's no king. If the nation doesn't accept the king, ein melech b'lo am, there's no king without a nation. And so the idea is that the awe level is the time that we bring that sense of kingship into our lives. And now, after we've done that, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we've crowned the king, and on the Kabbalistic level, there's a whole process of the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which has to do, and someone told me that actually many, many years has been learning Torah, and he's like, 10, that has to do with something. And just recently I learned it has to do with the 10 Sfirot, with the 10 emanations, that the 10 days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have to do with this process that starts from Malchut, from kingship, and there's an elevation that we go on Yom Kippur, reaches the crown level. That Malchut, according to the Arizal, Malchut rises all the way to the level of crown. And then there is that sense that the end is wedged at the beginning. And the truth is that the entire universe, the way it looks to us, with all of its variations and gradations, are all a aspect of the Creator. And they're all maybe a mask. They're all just masked, and by the Creator. And we unmask the Creator with our intentions, with our actions, with our heart, etc. Now, all of that then brings us to the second part of the month, which is the days of joy, which is the days that we're upon right now. With the days of Sukkot, it says that the days of Sukkot are the most joyous days, Yemei Simcha, that it's where it says joy twice in the Torah. Whereas it says by Shavuot and Passover once, you should be happy. On Sukkot, it says you should be happy twice, meaning that the emphasis on joy is very, very powerful during Sukkot. So that's something that really takes our delving into. What is the aspect of Sukkot that is so joyous? And B, what is real joy? Because is joy just being able to travel on my yacht in the Riviera? And although it's for sure sounds like a great idea, it sounds like a beautiful day. If you can. So is that joy, having that beautiful external aspect? Exactly. So what is joy? Is joy something which is external, or is joy something which is internal? And so this is what we're going to be delving into. So I ask you all, please, to, if you have any questions, comments, if you could just please share them. I'd love to, to really make this as real and as interactive as possible. So continuing this idea, this notion of days of awe and then days of joy. So many people think that, okay, the days of awe are over. Whew, thank God. Now I'm on to let the good times roll. And so it's I'm done with the whole fasting aspect.
Days of awe is days of light that seem to be Yom Tovs, which although we bring a negative aspect, a negative view to what Yom Kippur, because if we're being judged and we need to do teshuva, but really there should be days of joy and simcha, because we are allowed to do teshuva, we're forgiven and given a new start.
Exactly.
We're cleansed.
Yeah.
Should be days, we should be seeing them more like days of light.
100%. 100%, because year over year, you're living for quite a while, a lifestyle that is much more spiritually inclined. But for many people, or most people in the world, that's not something which is a reality. So days of awe are not really compatible with joy. And so now I want to say that awe really is the predecessor for true joy. And without awe, one can't have real joy. So on that aspect, joy, there's something which is called, there's actually 10 words of joy in the Torah, but then there's a word which is called leitz. Leitz is someone that makes fun and folly of everything. And that's very different than joy. Making fun or poking fun at people and at things is something that our society is very used to as being, a form of entertainment, that we poke fun at everyone and everything, especially the president, and especially someone that is supposed to have a sense of respect about them. Then that leitz, which King David says that with Moshav Leitzim, in the den of folly individuals, I will not sit. That's what King David says. So joy is very different than folly, because true joy is predicated on the notion that there is something greater than myself. Because if there's just me and I alone, then there isn't really joy, right? if we take our children, or we take young children, and we try to educate them, we try to say, you know what? I want you to have fun. So therefore, I'm going to just give you ice cream. I'm just going to give you candies all day long. I'm just going to, whatever you want, no problem. You want a phone? I'll buy you a new tablet, a new, whatever you wish is my command. I just want you to be happy. You know, Kate and Bob or whatever. Just so it's just giving, giving, giving. And so does that child really feel joy? And the answer is no. They do not feel joy because they don't feel that there are limits in their lives. And so limits really set forth joy. Without limits, then we don't really have the ability to be happy. And so what are limits? Limits, the parameters of limits are the days of awe. That we realize on a spiritual level that there is a creator and there is a master in the universe. Then that means that I'm perhaps not my own greatest boss that I thought I was, or I'm able to have control over everything in life that I think that I could have, or do whatever that I think that I can do, and that there are limitations and ramifications to my actions. And so setting forth awe is also setting forth boundaries, which boundaries therefore open us up to be able to really have true joy. So when we take a child or an individual or an adult, and we tell them, you know what, you are able to do this and this and that, and you're not able to do this and this and that, and you're able to go here and you're not able to go there, then you're doing that obviously in a loving way, not in a negative way. Then that individual, that child, is then able to really enter that space and say, I feel comfortable in this little space that I'm in, because that space is something that my father and mother put me in, orchestrated me in. They deemed that I need to be in this space. And therefore, if they deemed that I should be in that space, who am I to say that, oh, I don't want to be in this space? I'm in the space. And obviously it's the best space for me. And therefore, I have the ability to, and this is a great, great quote, okay? It says in Pirkei Avot, Ezu asher hasameach bechalko. Who is wealthy? Who is rich? The Mishnah says, one that is happy with his or her lot. That's the colloquial, explanations of it. That, okay, I have this kind of a place. I gotta be happy with it. What could I do? There's a much deeper explanation. The deeper explanation is as follows. Ezu Ashir, who is wealthy? Who is really wealthy? Hasamech bechalko, that is able to make and to take their lot and to infuse joy in their lot. Then they're wealthy. It's not Ezu Ashir, Hasamech bechalko. I have this place. Fine, I got to be happy with it. What could I do? It's not the best, but whatever. No. Ezu Asher, who is wealthy? Hasamech bechalko, that is able to infuse simcha in his or her lot. And whatever that lot is now infused with joy. And it's a totally different way of looking at the space that I am now placed into, which is the perfect transition to bringing us into Succot, because Succot is far from being an amazingly beautiful home or hotel.
Bring joy into Succot.
Exactly. It's not. It's what is it? It's just four walls, and you're outdoors, and the whole idea of Succot is refers to the journeys of the Jewish people in the desert, that we were outdoors, and therefore the clouds of glory surrounded us. And therefore the idea of building the booths is really that reenactment, that we're surrounded by the clouds of glory as we're traveling from that place of, which is called Egypt. On the physical level, there's a nation which is called Egypt, and on the spiritual level, it is our inner Egypt. So I apologize if there's any freezing. I'm not sure if there is. Just the whatever it is the internet. So the idea of coming into joy from the days of awe is a perfect transition, because when could we truly feel joy when we feel awe? Call it joy. Get the two of them together. One second. Seems like there are certain gaps. Okay.
Are you recording this?
Yes, I'm just putting this on a hotspot.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm gonna.
Well, I was just going to say, when you send out the recording, it won't jump around. I've noticed that with some of your
Yes.
lives. So if people, you'll get it in the recording and it'll be smooth.
Okay. Well, everyone made the time to really log on, so I want to be as respectful as possible. And I apologize. I just put on the hotspot, and this is a brand new Wi-Fi zone in the shul. So, anyways. So that's also a limitation, I guess, and we have to find the joy within the limitation of what it is. So, okay, now Sukkot are these booths, which are these a transient place of dwelling, and specifically within the transient place of dwelling is where we find. Thank you, Rhonda, is where we find the true joy of life. So let's try to understand the days of Sukkot on a deeper level. So there are many mitzvot that are associated with Sukkot, which obviously it's beyond the time right now to really delve into all of them. But there's one particular mitzvah which is directly associated with Sukkot. And that mitzvah is called Nisuch Hamayim. It's called the libation of water. The libation of water. So those of us that are not familiar with what that means, let me just recount what the libation of water was about. So the Mishnah recounts how the greatest days of the year and the greatest joy of the year was associated with this process, which is called the drawing of water, which in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount is where the temple was built, right? And that's where the Mizbeach was, the altar. And on the altar, there were two various openings that went down into what the Talmud says, into the center of the world, that they went down very, very deeply. And one of the openings was for what is called the libation of wine. And wine was brought together with the other sacrifices in the temple on a daily level, on a daily scale, including on Shabbat and on holidays and whatnot. Now, once a year, or during or not once a year, for 6 days of the year, not on Shabbat, there was this ceremony which was called the libation of water, where not only was there the libation of wine, there was also the libation of water. And that libation of water was about, the Mishnah really recounts this whole process of going down from the Temple Mount all the way to the Silwan. Anyone that's familiar with Ir David, with the city of David, incredibly important archaeological, there's the water tunnels, and there is that stream of water which is coming from the Silwan, and the Talmud says that water connected underneath the mount, the Temple Mount, and that water ascended upwards, and they drew the water. The priest, the Kohanim, drew that water, and it went upwards. But on the days of Succot, there was this process of going down to that body of water called the Silwan, the Shiloach, and drawing up that water. And that water was then brought with great ceremony to the Mizbeach, to the altar, and with great joy. And it says that someone that did not see that joy never saw joy in their life. Whoever did not see the joy of Simchas Beis HaShoeva, they never saw joy in their life. In fact, it says about the prophet Jonah, that when did he start to prophesize? Most people heard of the prophet Jonah, with a whale. So the Talmud says that when did he get his prophecy? By Simchat Beit HaShoeva. He was there at that one of the events, and he was stirred to the level of prophecy. There was the level of prophecy, not just joy, and it would beyond joy. The joy of the joy of level of prophesizing, connecting to that, the idea of God is speaking to me, like kind of a level, and that's what it says, Ruach HaKodesh, that there was that joy that was an incredibly spiritual delight of the Creator, joy. So the question is, what was that great joy? All it is water. I mean, you're just drawing water, you're bringing it up, and there's such a great joy over there. I mean, but that doesn't make sense. What's the whole idea of this joy? And so over here, we really are taught the really important deep lesson of what joy is. Joy is associated with what? Does anyone want to say? The word is simplicity. Joy is associated with simplicity, not complexity. Wine is complex. I mean, I enjoy wine, and we make wine a little bit. So, and it's so intriguing and complex, and you could learn so much about it, and you never stop. But then at the end of the day, it's complex, and you don't know what's in your mind and what's real and what's not, and other people don't. There's so much there. But water is not like that. Of course, there's different types of water, but water is not like that. Water is simple. And water is like, you've got it, you see what you get. And you see what you get, the simple person, basically. The simple person is much more connected to joy, to real simcha, than the complex person.
Transparent.
Huh?
Transparent. Exactly.
It's just, they're not thinking, oh, should I say this? Should I do this? Should I do? No, their joy is much more associated with their feet, with the level of their feet, as opposed to their head. Whereas with our head, with our brain, we can't really come to joy. There's only a place of joy when we let go of what's in our head and we translate that into our feet, into that level of simplicity.
It's like water goes with the flow, you know, like Bruce Lee said, be like water.
Yeah.
It's very, water goes, it forms into, you put it in a glass, it forms into the glass, whatever it is, but it doesn't change who the water doesn't change what it is, but it can be reformed, but it's also extremely powerful. It can, I mean, look at the Grand Canyon, you know, so look at what it does to rock. So it's persistent, it's powerful, but it's soft.
Yeah. And it has no exactly, and it has no nature of its own. It's just flowing with where it came from, with its source. It's true to its source. So whatever water we are drinking, all waters are connected to all oceans. And when we drink water, and in fact, how do you say water in Hebrew? Maim, right? Maim is mem yud mem, which is a palindrome, right? You have water from the top, the mem, and then the mem from below. So if you have water that you drew from the earth, it's still, all waters are connected or interconnected to the other. Yeah, exactly. It's forward or backwards. And also, by the way, mem yud mem, in terms of letters, the mem is associated with bina, and yud is associated with chachma. And they say that right, H2O is associated with the actual words of mayim. The hydrogen is basically connected to the yud, and oxygen is right. So the mem is bina. Bina is basically the idea of bina is double. There's actually two. That's why bina is 20. And Kabbalistically, bina is 20 and chachma is 10. Always, you know, the days of Sarah was 127. So 120 is bina. And anyways, so not going too much down that. So the idea of water is that water is connected to simplicity, and simplicity and understanding that what I have and who I am is connected to my source, being connected to my source. And when we are connected to our source, therefore we have joy. You look at young children and you're like, they're joyous. Why are they joyous? You know, they walk up and down and then they fall and they scratch themselves and they're joyous. They cry, they let it all out, but then they're happy, but they have that natural sense of happiness. The reason is because they're connected to their source, undiluted. They're not connected to that funnel or to that filter that's constantly filtering everything about them. They're unfiltered, unfiltered individuals. And the same thing applies to special needs individuals, adults and children. My uncle is special needs. I grew up with and blessed to grow up with that, with someone that was so loving and authentic. He's Down syndrome. My uncle Chaim, the most loving individual in my life. Like one of the, you know, and basically, I mean, I call him up. He's just, there's just an outpour of love. You're like, where does that heart come from? How come other people aren't showing that much? But that's the undiluted source, which is speaking, and very often as adults and as complex individuals, we don't see that. So during the days of Sukkot, we have the ability, because we came from Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and we made an accounting of ourselves, who we are, what we want to work on, what we're aspiring for, what we need, what we want, etc., etc. And so we have some dialogue with our higher source on some level, right? Obviously, everyone, we're all growing individuals, you know. There's a bib, you know, it's a tzaddik in training. It's like we're all in training. We're all getting there. We're all from on whatever level we are coming from. But the days of Sukkot are the days that we are now able to go into that framework of being limited by the Sukkah and still infuse joy within that space. And say that space, whatever space that I'm in, that this is the best space that I could ever be in the whole world. Otherwise, I would be in a different place. So I'm in this place, I'm online, I'm in this situation, I'm in this predicament, I'm in this. It's very difficult for sure in many predicaments to do this. And obviously, that's why at Sukkot, we're all doing this on hopefully on the level of joy and good health and whatnot. And it should only stay on that level. But true joy is able to go beyond limitations. Because if it doesn't, then it's not real joy, then it's not really digging deep enough, which is why the water which was not brought from the kior, which is called the wash basin in the temple. It was actually brought from the Mayan, because it was brought from the source, because joy has to come from the source. And if it doesn't come from the source, then it's also nice and important. Sometimes we have to externally do things, and that's okay too, that's important. But the real days of joy and the ultimate levels of joy is that we're actually digging deeper into the perception of what we ever thought joy really even looked like. So all of this has to do with sitting in the Sukkah, which is a transient dwelling place of makeshift home that we are sitting inside. And we're saying that within this home is where the divine rests, which, by the way, the sukkah actually has what is called the schach, the canopy above it, which has the numerology of 100, which has to do with the 100 sounds of the shofar, which were blasted on Rosh Hashanah. And also the schach has to do with the incense of the high priest on Yom Kippur, which is the direct effect of the days of awe onto the days of joy. So what we're really sitting in and really what we are experiencing is what we sowed for ourselves on that positive level. So 100 blessings, we make a day plus one more. So we make 100 blessings, right?
I think we didn't get the shofar blows this year.
Yeah, most of us were. No, well, each day is 100.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there was 100 on the second day.
Well, second day is 100. Yeah, supposed to be 100. If you were by a minion.
Okay.
I was home myself, and I actually blew for other people, so I got 100. So, or hopefully other people got 100.
What's with the incense?
So the incense was the high priest, the job of the high priest going on the Holy of Holies, what did he do there? He brought the incense, wearing the white clothing, the simple man's clothing, right? Not the golden clothing, the white clothing, the simple clothing, that in that level, on that level of simplicity is really where the essence really resides. It's where the essence really is, in that space of simplicity, right? The high priest goes in to the place of eternity, because that's where Holy of Holies is
Well, simple, the simplicity.
within that, wearing the white garment and bringing the incense, which has to do with just, it's not even felt. It's not even like some piece of meat that you could, put your hands around or something that was like the other sacrifices. It's not a sacrifice like that. It's a sacrifice which is much more sublime. It's much more unfelt. It's much more subtle. It's much more
Godly.
Yes, godly, exactly. It's
Elevated.
yeah. So that's the analogy of that. And when we sit in the sukkah, we're sitting in that incense of the high priest on Yom Kippur, which Yom Kippur, as you said before, is a real true day of joy. Yom Kippur is a day of joy because it's a day, even though we don't eat or drink, it's a day of joy because it's a day that we are connected to our higher self. 5 levels of soul are expressed. And therefore, what could be better, what could be more fulfilling than we fulfilling who we really are, our expression of our true self on all of our levels, because we've got various levels. We've got 5 different levels of soul, and these various levels were all expressed on Yom Kippur. But again, they were not necessarily felt. And on Succot is where we experience that level of joy, where we get into that limitation. That limitation is putting us in a state of joy. So I just want to say, for all of us that are, it's not really deviating from the point, but I think it really has to do with the point, because we have to celebrate the times that we're in and the parsha that we're learning with the times that we're really living in, on a personal level and on a society, on a world level. And that's the way we should really be studying whatever it is that we're studying, connected to what we call reality that is going on right now. So reality that's going on right now for basically the whole world, whether you're on some level of quarantine or not, or whatever you want to call it or not, we're all forced to feel a sense of joy in the predicament and the situation that we are in. And we're all in a predicament that we're all saying to ourselves, what if, I wish, I want, absolutely. We all wish and want and should plan. It's not a contradiction to planning and doing our best to planning. Just, by the way, knowing that we are probably not going to achieve as much as we want to achieve during this time, and being okay with not achieving as much as, oh, I should be doing this and this and this. Listen, you are not going to be able to do all those things, and just be okay with that is just very important. But then really understanding that we're placed in a predicament, in whatever predicament that we are in and place that we're in, and understanding that that place is where we have to infuse that joy into. Ezu asher asamech bechalko. Because to realize that joy, if joy is only dependent on if I have this, and if I go to this place, and if I will do this, then that's saying that joy is outside of ourselves. And if joy is outside of ourselves, it means that we're really powerless to experiencing true, eternal, untamed joy, right? We're powerless to that, because we're basically saying that it depends on other things. And so real joy is connected to experiencing joy in the place and in the time and the situation that one is placed into, regardless of what it is. And as difficult as it is, and believe me, it is really not easy times. We are in crazy times on so many different levels. But one thing that is for sure that we could incorporate and we could learn from Sukkot is that we need to, sorry, I just had to mute everyone, is that we need to understand that joy is something that we dig into deeper. And it's that process of understanding that it's not understanding. It's understanding that we can't understand everything in order to feel happiness. And happiness and joy happens right now and happens regardless of where one is found. And so therefore, this really has to do with what we call the legs, the feet. That's why the end of Sukkot has to do with what we call, with the holiday, which is called Simchat Torah, the joy of the dancing of Torah, which is the joy of dancing with the feet. And it's a joy of just dancing with feet and just letting go. And there's nothing more healing than doing that, than just blasting sometimes music and just allowing yourself to dance in that music, and not thinking, well, what am I going to look like? What if someone did? Don't worry about it. Just go and let your feet take you. So this was the story of King David, that King David himself was brought the Ark of the Covenant that was by the Philistines, and with great joy and fanfare, it says that King David was dancing, outdanced everyone there as the king, and he was probably a little older even in whatever stage that he was in. So the daughter of King Saul, Michal, saw him, and she said afterwards, "How could you act like one of the simpletons of the nation?" To which King David said, "And I wish that I could have done even more, expressed that level of joy even more than what I've already done." And by the way, it says that Michal was unfortunately punished not to have a child because of that slight to the king and what he was really looking, or what he was really achieving on a deep level. So we see from here that joy is associated with the feet and associated with the simple person, that has no sophistication. There isn't that idea of just like extra complexities that are brought into every situation, that I need to throw in an extra dose, an extra spice of complexity into a situation. It's to uncomplicate life, is to increase in more joy, not to make it more complicated. When we make things more complicated and throw in more and more extra, control seasoning, I need to control this way and to control that way and to have control of this person and to need things. It's like, it's not going to work. It's like only by the letting go for the need to control and to enjoy what is where we have the true sense of joy, of simcha. And that is Sukkot. That is the holiday of Sukkot. It's the ability to bask in that simple person's joy. To know that you're being held onto, that you're being hugged, that we're being hugged. To know that there's a bigger vision, there's a bigger purpose, there's an unseen arm that is hugging me, which is, by the way, the Succah. The Zohar says, it's brought by the Arizal, that the Sukkah is the torso, it's the arm that's hugging, that's bringing forth, that we're embraced. And when we realize that we're embraced by our Father, Mother in heaven, right? The true Father and Mother in heaven, then there's nothing that feels better, because we know that, they know what they're doing. Like when we were little children, we're like, okay, our parents know what they're doing because we don't know any better. Sometimes with our biological parents, we realize that maybe they didn't know what they were doing and they kind of messed up royally. But they're humans, and we realize that there is a beyond human Father and Mother that is eternal, and that's Hashem. That is embracing. So that embrace is the most soothing embrace possible that one could ever receive. And there's nothing that feels better than a hug from your Father and Mother in Shemaim, in heaven. And that within that hug, there's everything. There's the eternal there. It may feel like it's restricting, like a hug sometimes does. A hug is restricting. You're like, oh, why are you hugging me so hard? When you hug someone you love, you're like, especially if they're young, you're like, they may not understand what you're doing to them, but you're really loving them. But that hug, that restricted hug, is really is a passionate embrace. So I'd like to perhaps do a little meditation now, if that's okay, for the last 5 minutes or so, or whatever it is. A little meditation, if we may, as we enter Sukkot. So so those of you that would like to, whatever it is, obviously everyone is muted, to sit down in a comfortable position. I would like to just go into the simple person's meditation, which we've already been placed into. We're all simple people, being, but then the simple person opening up to experience joy is what the simple person needs to remember. Okay, so I'm just going to find my video. Okay, so everyone, let's sit in a comfortable position, allowing the breath to come through our nose down to our stomach, allowing the air in to the belly and out. Allowing the air in, puffing, extending the belly out and in. Allowing yourself to, first of all, relax any level of tension in your body, in your eyes, forehead, crown of your head, shoulders, torso. Just allowing relaxation into your space, into your life. It's okay. All deserve relaxation. Now, I'd like you to imagine yourself sitting inside of the sukkah. Sukkah is again 4 walls or 3 walls surrounded by canopy on top. Smell, if it's fern wood or it's oak that are the walls of the sukkah, the brisk air outside of fall, and the newness in the environment all around us. There's a newness in the air waiting to descend and enter into this world and into this year. That newness is descending down on a level of chesed, of goodness, of love. The sukkah is the embrace of love. Sukkah is also the numerology of 91, which is the name of Adonai, God within this world, and Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, God above this world, the infinite, 26 and 65, equaling 91. Allowing the above nature to descend into nature. Allowing the infinite to touch base with the finite. If you could see the sukkah that you're in as vividly as possible, and smell the crisp air and wood, awning. Allowing the limitations of yourself to become expanded by the infinite influx of love and divine energy of the Creator. While not losing your space and equilibrium and becoming a perfect vessel that is able to receive those blessings. This is the meditation that one should have on the first night of Sukkot, knowing that Hashem, as we eat the first piece of bread, that Hashem has taken us out of Egypt, surrounding us with the clouds of glory, infinite love into this world, into the finite. Ein od milvado. Nothing else exists besides the divine. And there is a unity that pervades the above nature and nature. And so the space that you're sitting in is a very expansive space. If you look upwards, allow the breath to bring this reality into the DNA and fabric of yourself. Just as water flows from above to below, so too, this love and divine energy is gushing, flowing from on top. Allow your mind's eye to expand and allow that divine flow into your body and the sukkah that you're sitting in. And then from there, that flow emanates to the rest of the world. You are a channel of divine flow, of receiving and giving. Allowing that flow to flow endlessly. When we give, we receive. When we receive, we must give. When we know something or have something or see how we could utilize it to better serve humanity, better serve Hashem. Okay, so now on the count of 5, we are going to rise out of this meditation, feeling relaxed and prepared for entering the Sukkah, making that divine connection of the above nature and nature. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So wishing everyone a very peaceful and beautiful and joyous holiday of Sukkot. And yes, and feeling that flowing, dancing selves that we really are, to really to really be that, because my friends, we have no choice. There's nowhere back to look at. We just need to go forward, and we need to be that person and not dream of being that person anymore. So my very all of my blessings to all of you and to all of us. And I really enjoyed this meditation. We usually don't go into a meditation on Thursday night, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if that's something that is beneficial, we could definitely try to end off a class with a specific meditation that obviously relates to the class. So wishing everyone a happy holiday of Sukkot, and may we all just be blessed with everything that is there for the good, and may we access that inner good of our souls and our potential. So a very, very big Chag Sameach, and looking forward to experiencing in person, God willing, in Yerushalayim very soon.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Great to see you, Leah. And God bless everyone. Miley, God bless you. Dora, Ilana, Tammy, Shimonit, Shannon, Rachel, Jennifer, and Fagi. So God bless everyone.